I lost not only my son, I lost my fear, my hope. He was the only future that I have.
I want to tell people that my friend Shayan, he was a very loving person.
Shayan was a son, he was a best friend, he was a boyfriend. This can happen to anyone.
Shayan was only my son, only my children, everything I have.
Here we have a young kid who's in college who had everything to look forward to, and one interaction with a hate-filled killer shattered his family and took his life.
Shayan was generous, sweet, kind, hospitable person.
Very happy man, and he was good boy, and he was very sharp.
Loving, compassionate, fun.
Cheerful, smart, and caring.
A suspected killer considered armed and dangerous is on the run tonight, wanted for the murder of a young Orange County man.
They're looking for a man with a very dangerous past.
Longtime gang member with a history of violent crimes.
The suspect is an admitted white supremacist.
On September 7th, 2015, Shayan Mazroei, who was 22 at the time, went to Patsy's, which is a pub with a pool table, to play pool with some of his friends.
We arrived to the place, Patsy's, at 9 p.m. We went to a bar. I didn't want to play pool that night, but he did. After maybe an hour, some lady comes to him and asking, like, is your name Shayan? And he answers to her, yes.
And ends up getting into an altercation with two people in particular. One, Elizabeth Thornburg, who approached him and began to basically bully him and pick on him because of his Iranian descent. She spat on him several times and called him racial slurs because of the Farsi tattoo on his arm.
She started saying, where are you from? He said, I'm from Iran. And she said, what is this tattoo in your hand? And he said, he's a symbol of my country. It's an Iranian symbol. And this one, it says love in Farsi.
So you can see Elizabeth Thornburg walking into the bar at 11:20, followed by Craig Tanber.
I don't remember what she said exactly, but she said something about, I don't like Persian people, you guys have no respect for women, you shouldn't be here, you should just go back. I don't know if she said go back to Iran or go back to your home, whatever, but she did say that go back, you should go back, you shouldn't be here.
She called him an effing Iranian, a terrorist, and an Arab.
She spit on Shayan, and Shayan spit on her. I didn't witness that, but next thing I saw is she was running and chasing Shayan with a light cigarette inside Patsy's with around the pool table.
You can see Shayan rubbing the spit off of his arm. And the security asked Elizabeth Thornburg and her then boyfriend, Craig Tanber, to leave the premise. And they leave the premise, but they are waiting outside.
Craig Tanber, he's a known white supremacist gang member of Pen 1, which is public enemy number 1. He had just recently been released from prison for this prior murder, his involvement in this prior murder.
Public enemy number 1 is a white supremacist gang. It's essentially a unique hybrid, a cross between subcultures, combining white supremacist prison gang with racist skinhead organization, as well as a street gang. But their activity involves, or kind of the glue that brings them together, is their embrace of Hitlerian ideology.
After that, probably 15, 20 more minutes, Tambrr opens the door, points at Shayan, and makes a sign like this, come here, with his hand.
And Shayan, for what reason, I don't know. Perhaps he thought the security people were out there, outside of the pub.
And the guy Tambrr just punching in the face, and Shayan punching in the face. Then they step out, and then I saw Shayan falling down, and I asked myself, like, that wasn't too hard of a punch, why is he falling down? And I start seeing all the blood coming out of his ribs, and obviously he got stabbed.
And dies of his wounds at the hospital later.
We have a known suspect, we have, motive, we have statements, we have evidence that tends to show his state of mind and his motivation for committing this crime, and that was based on Shayan's known or perceived characteristics of being an Iranian-American. It shouldn't be a difficult case to prove.
My mom came from the room and I see her face is so red, and I said, what's going on? And my brother was very sad too, and he started saying to me, I think Shayan had a very bad accident and you have to go back, they need you. So I passed out, and my family called a doctor. They came to my house and gave me a shot to be a little bit more relaxed so I can handle this long flight. When we get here, I turn on my cell phone and I saw so many messages. I heard the first one, and he said, sorry for your loss, I'm from news or something. And I passed out again. My brother told me, don't worry, because the accident was very bad. They think he died, but he's okay. I find out we're going home. I said, why you don't go to hospital? He said, it's not time. Let's get home first. And then by the time I get home, I saw their faces. I found out what happened. And I don't believe that. I couldn't feel anything that moment, just pain. I lost not only my son, I lost my fear, my hope. He was the only future that I have.
It was 2 a.m. Oklahoma time when it happened. I had received a phone call, and it was his friend, and she said, have you heard what happened? And she's just sobbing. I was like, no. And she says, Shayan's been stabbed. I could never imagine the news that I'd get later on.
I was at home with one of my other friends, and one of the friends I met through Shayan. And his brother called him, and he said that, yeah, I think this happened to Shayan. And at that point, none of us believed it. They said he got in a fight, but that was totally out of imagination, because I knew Shayan was not the guy who would get in a fight just because he was such a cheerful and nice guy. Like, if anything, everyone wants to buy him a drink or something. It was a shock. It is still a shock. I cannot still believe that he's gone.
He's naturally just like so reserved and laid back and so chill. He's not one to get into altercations like that.
After 5 days on the run, deputies arrested him at this Motel 6 in Westminster.
After a week happened, they catch him finally, and they came to my house, and they asked me if we want to see the video. We went, everybody, me and my husband and my brother went to sheriff department and saw the video, and finally we find out what happened. That moment, I just want to kill myself because I didn't have any hope anymore. I think it's a hate crime because Tambrr has a PEN1 tattoo, and if you have just a regular fight, why he stabbed with knife and kill him? Because he was full of hate. And also his girlfriend, he called him a lot names and racist names.
She targeted my son as the terrorist or as the racist. It wasn't just a regular fight, it was a hate crime.
You can't ignore that the incident started with that. You can't ignore that Craig Tanber is a member of Public Enemy #1 and is an open and known white supremacist.
He was involved in a separate murder of a murder of a Huntington Beach man back in, I believe, 2006. He went to trial for that case, and because of some juror misconduct, there was a mistrial declared, and rather than going through trial again, Mr. Tambrr decided to plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 13 years in prison. And he was actually on parole when he stabbed Shayan Mazroei on September 7, 2015.
When people tell you they don't like you because of who you are, because of your status, your nationality, your religion, your ethnicity, your race, or what have you, when people join gangs whose mission is solely based on white supremacy, and when those people end up attacking you and killing you or a member of your community, you have to believe them. You have to believe that those actions come from the values that they hold.
Public Enemy #1 is a mercenary and criminal organization coupled with a white supremacist ideology and a propensity for violence. This triple effect is a danger to not only law enforcement, but to the general community. This is an organization that whose members use drugs as well as distribute drugs, and they're heavily involved in that drug-running subculture. As a result, like any drug-running subculture, their activities and their behavior is oftentimes erratic and explosive in nature. They want to have the reputation of being ruthless and being hardcore. And so some of these symbols send that message to others.
This was an issue that hit the Iranian-American community really hard, and we were really impacted by it. And it resonated all throughout the community from coast to coast. You can't help but to put yourself in his shoes and the fear that he must have felt in that situation.
We decided to come over there and for Shayan to give him better opportunity of life, and also for us to having better life, make him to be more successful.
Actually, we start again with nothing. Start to work at the gas station. After a year and a half, we start opening the car lot about the used car dealership. I started doing business for myself. He was very sharp when he was a kid. Talking to anybody, very fast connect to everybody, you know. Because we was very young, we have the Shayan. He grew up with us. Actually, we grew up together. We really liked traveling. And we have the best time in the traveling. Anytime we was together, he's doing something, we laughing, you know. We was very happy with him.
So we were together for 4 years. We had actually just celebrated our 4-year anniversary the week before the incident. Shayan was always about his family, and like with him being an only child, of course, like I feel like that made them even stronger. So they'd always be on trips together. They were all best friends.
Showing love to everyone was one of Shayan's things. He believed that most people want to be loved, but they never want to show love. So he was the one who was trying to actually show love to everyone without expecting anything in return. And that's what his tattoo was about too. It was saying love, and it was something very peaceful. He was going to school to become a mechanical engineer, and everything was falling in place for him.
Most treasured moments, of course, is the last time I was able to see him. So I had flown out kind of to celebrate our anniversary. It's been hard. Losing someone that you think you're going to spend the rest of your life with is heartbreaking.
We're pushing for hate crime charges at the state and federal level. So we want the Orange County District Attorney's Office, Tony Rakakis, to bring hate crime charges against Craig Tanber and against Elizabeth Thornburg.
With regards to Elizabeth Thornburg, I'm baffled as to why she hasn't been charged with anything. She is the instigator of the whole incident. She is the one who started picking on Shayan and calling him names.
Setting aside the hate crime for a minute, this is someone who helped a killer flee from a crime scene.
So the evidence that is there is pretty strong. And I'm going to say this because I think it's important to always think about how would things have turned out if the situation was different. If this was a Muslim man who had ties to the religious community, or even ties to a group that some considered extreme, and that man ended up killing a white Christian man, would we have a hard time believing the motivation of his actions the same way that we are having a hard time believing the motivation of the actions of Elizabeth Thornburg and Craig Tanber? So we gotta shift our perspective to really check ourselves whether we're treating everybody equally, particularly in the justice system in this country.
I think it's an affront to the community when hate crimes are not charged as hate crimes, because it diminishes that community's humanity in a way, saying that you all are not worthy or deserving of this protection and dignity that was the impetus for enacting these hate crime statutes in the first place.
By not charging this incident and incidents like it as a hate crime, a message is sent to white supremacist groups that they can feel emboldened to act on those feelings and those views and not face the full consequences of doing so.
I don't know, it just makes me be fearful about people I meet around, like when I go out. It kind of makes me want to stay away, not get too friendly right off the sudden. It just makes it harder for me to be out there sometimes. Like it takes me some time to get to know people and trust them and make sure they are like cool with who I am, and being an Iranian here in California. That's how it makes me feel.
Most of my friends, they are worried about their family too. They are worried about us. And we have to do something. We cannot see another happen like this to somebody else, to another family. Shayan was only my son, only my children, everything I have. Right now I do not have anything. At least we have to do it something for the another kids, another family.
We have to bring more attention to issues like this. we need to bring awareness to people and let them know that this is still happening.
To paint the picture here in California, we have the largest racist skinhead population in the country, and it's predominantly centered in Southern California. Those that subscribe to this racist skinhead ideology embrace this belief system of white supremacy in general and superiority over other races.
It's more scary right now with this new president. Even more people has more power to show the other people their hates, and even with no punishment for even the Tambrr, they think they can do anything to other people like us with different color, and that's not right.
When you have this type of rhetoric coming from government officials at the highest levels of government, that it really has signaled to bad actors that, you know, hate crimes are tolerated or even, you know, some may say endorsed by the government.
This is staggering. And so we are seeing the floodgates open across our country as white supremacists and extremists in general feel more emboldened. They are no longer hiding behind these masks. They're no longer shielding their faces. But as Charlottesville showed us, these are individuals who proved to the world who they were. And they were proud, they were bold, and certainly marked in our history a time where there's definitely a shift on how white supremacists are willing to be portrayed.
And I think it signifies that racism and discrimination and hate crimes is not a black issue, it's not a immigrant issue, it's not a Latino issue or a Muslim issue. I think it's an illness that's plaguing American society, and we have to deal with it head on. And there's no such thing as immunity from it.
What's next is a lot of advocacy and grassroots advocacy from the community. And, you know, we're going to let the legal case play out in the court of law. But, you know, Elizabeth Thornburg has to be held accountable for her involvement in the killing of Shayan Mazroei. Period.
My most anger is come from Elizabeth Tambrr, that he tortured my son a lot. She was spit on a young boy for nothing.
And I think they just decided that night that he was the one that they wanted to harm.
They accept you as a citizen. They have to treat you the same thing because they treat you as an American when they want to get the tax, when they want to do any other things. They treat you the same, but on the justice, no.
And once the people remember him as it was, he always was happy, he always was enjoying his life. His life was short, but he was happy.
He always had a smile in his face. He was a funny guy, kind and very sweet. I want him to remember like that all the time.
Shayan is not here with us anymore. It's just us who can still fight for his rights, and we should keep doing it.